Alright, okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is average rainfall. Okay, so write a program that uses nested loops to collect data and calculate the average rainfall over a period of years. First, the program should ask for the number of years. Okay. The outer loop will, for the number of years, the outer loop will iterate once for each year. The inner loop will iterate 12 times, once for each month. Each iteration of the inner loop will ask the user for the inches of rainfall for that month. After all iterations, the program should display the number of months, the total inches of rainfall, and the average rainfall per month for the entire period. And we have some input validation where it's saying we shouldn't accept a number less than 1 for the number of years. We shouldn't accept negative numbers for the monthly rainfall. Okay, so all right, so let's start the program and then we'll have a better sense of it as we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create the class. I call it average rainfall. And I'll create the main method. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so in the program it says first the program should ask for the number of years. So because we're going to be asking for user input, I'm going to be using the JOption pane to ask for input. Now I can use a scanner. I'm just using the JOption pane to ask for input. Okay, so to do that I need to import the JOption pane class into this program so that this program can have access to the JOption pane class. So JOption pane dot oops I thought I was creating using one of the methods, either the show input or show message. Yeah, importing the class. So it's import javax dot swing dot JOption pane. Okay, so let's see what the program says. Write a program that uses a nested loop to collect data and okay, so first the program should ask for the number of years. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and ask for the number of years. So it's going to be a system out the println statement that is going to say please enter the number of years. Sorry. And actually, because we are using the JOption pane, I don't have to use this. If I'm using the scanner, that's where I have to use this. I don't know why I use the system use this statement. Because we're using the JOption pane, let's go ahead and use the JOption pane's show inputs dialog to ask for user inputs. Okay, so show I don't know what's wrong with me. All right, so it's JOption pane dot show inputs dialog, and the JOption pane dot show input dialog takes one argument, which is what you're asking the user, which is the label that's going to display on the screen. So I'm asking for the user to please enter the number of number of years. Please enter the number of years. And the user is going to enter that. Now, whatever the JOption pane.show input dialog message returns is going to be in a string. Even if the user types in a number here, that number is going to be returned as a string. So I'm going to create a string variable to hold that. So it's going to be a string. I'm going to call it user input string. We're just going to store what the user is going to type. So I'm going to go ahead and store what the user is going to type in user input string. Now, because everything that the show input dialog returns is a string, like I said, even if the user types in a number here, it's going to return that number as a string. But the thing is, we can't use strings in calculations. We need a number. So we need to go ahead and convert what the user typed, okay, which has been returned as a string, into a number so we can use it. In this case, number of years is going to be an integer because we are, this with respect to this program, it's going to be an integer. So I'm going to create an integer variable here, and I'm going to call it user number of years. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to call it user number of years, just to show that it was the user who typed it, or who input that. And like I said, we have to convert what the user typed into a number. So the way to do that, in this case, I'm converting the number to an integer. Then the way to do that is using one of Java's one of the methods in the Java's wrapper classes to do that. So I'm going to call integer.parseInt, which is going to take user input as a parameter, user input string as a parameter, and it's going to return. So basically, we are passing what's stored in user input string as an integer. So we are passing what's stored in here, okay, as an integer. And when it does that, we need a place to store it. We need a place to store the number of years, and we have a variable here to do that. So I'm going to store the number of years, user number of years. I'm going to store the number of years in user number of years. Okay, so now by this point we will have the user number of years. Okay, so let's go ahead. The outer loop, okay, I think it mentioned we're going to use nested loops. So the outer loop, which is the first loop we create, will iterate once for each year. Okay, once for each year. Okay, so at least we have the user number of years, so we can start a for loop here. That's going to run the number of times, or the number of years that the user typed. So I am going to declare a variable. It's going to be an integer, and I'm going to call it year. Okay, year, and I'm going to initialize it to 1. The reason why I'm initializing it to 1 is because we are starting from 1. We want to loop 12, sorry, not 12 times, but we want to loop the number of years times. Okay, and we are starting from 1. Okay, so I'm initializing the variable called year, and I'm initializing the variable called year, and I'm initializing the variable called year to 1, right? Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so as long as year is less than or equal to the user number of years, then do what's in this for loop, and then before you come back up and check to see if year is less than or equal to user number of years, add 1 to year, and I do that with year plus plus. Okay, so starting from 1, we are going all the way to user number of years. So as long as so this loop is going to come back each time it comes back up, it's going to check to see if year, this variable, is less than or equal to number of years, and each iteration before it comes back up and check again, it adds 1 to year. So it starts from 1, and we're going to use the number of years. So by this time, after this loop is done, we would have gone through as many times number of years as the user typed. Okay, so we have that part done. So the outer loop will iterate once for each year. We've done that. The inner loop will iterate 12 times, once for each month. So the inner loop will iterate 12 times, once for each month. Okay, so first I want to go ahead, and because we have 12 months in a year, right? So we always have 12 months in a year. That's fixed. So I want to store that in a final variable, okay, in a constant. And because it's an integer, it's going to be a final integer, and I'm going to call that. It's going to be a long name, number. Okay, I'm going to call number of. I'm going to say month in a year. I'm going to call it months in a year, and this, by convention, and by convention and popular style, the final variables are declared or are named, with capitals. Okay, so all right, so month in a year, it's going to be 12. That's fixed. It's fixed. We can't change that. I'm sorry. I mean, that number is fixed. There are 12 months in a year, and that's why I want to store that. I'm not going to change it once the program is running, unless the program calls for it. But for this program doesn't call for it, so it's going to stay 12 months in a year. All right. So it said the inner loop should iterate 12 times, once for each month. So I'm going to create another for loop in this for loop. Okay. And for this for loop, we are going through all the months. So let's go ahead and declare another variable called month is equal to 1. We are starting from the first month, and we are going all the way to the month in a year. So as long as month is less than or equal to the month in a year, which I'm going to go ahead and copy this, equal to month in a year, then do what's in this loop. And before you come back up and check to see if every time before you come back up here and check to see if month is less than or equal to month in a year, add 1 to month. So it's going to be month plus plus. So by the time this loop is done, we will have gone through all the months. We would have gone through all the months in a year, because it's starting from 1 all the way to the months in a year. And each iteration before it comes back up and check, month has been increased to 1. So by the time this loop is done, we would have gone through all the months in a year. Okay. All right. Sorry about my cough. I've been having this cough for a while now. I keep on saying it's going to go, but it never goes. Hopefully it goes one of these days. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have our 2 loops set. The inner loop will iterate 12 times, once for each month. Okay, so it says each iteration of the inner loop, okay, so this one will ask the user for the inches of rainfall for that month. So let's go ahead and do that. Each iteration of the inner loop will ask the user for number of inches of rainfall for that month. Okay, so remember we have all the values stored in the variable, so we can use them in the loop to even ask questions and say what's the number of inches of rainfall for month 1. But instead of saying month 1 by typing 1 ourselves, we are going to use a variable so that the program will know that we'll do that. We'll do that in an implicit way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask the user. Since we are using the G option pane, I'm going to pop up a dialog box to do that. And the way I do that is, first let me see. We're asking for the inches of rainfall for that month. Okay, so I'm just like this statement, when we're asking for the number of years, I can go ahead and copy it. And try to use it here too. Okay, so I'm calling this method and I'm asking, please enter the number of inches of rainfall. Let's see, the inches of rainfall for month. Okay, now because we have the particular month number stored in month, I can go ahead and use the variable month. And because we have the particular year, okay, so what's going to happen is this loop is going to start from the first year and then enter, so this loop is going to start from the first year and then do what's in its block, and then it's going to go through this loop, and this loop is going to go through all the months in this particular year, and then when it's done, it's going to come back down here and go back up here. Before it goes back up here, year is going to be increased to 2. So now, for this loop is going to be, this year is going to be 2, and then so for year 2, it's going to go through all of the 12 months before it goes to year 3. So I have the variable, or the value of the year also stored in year, so I can go ahead and use it and say, please enter the inches of rainfall for month. Okay, month, which we have so in the first time it's going to be for month 1, and then I have the variable stored for year 2, so I can say for month 1, year 1. Okay, but before I do that, let me go ahead and break this another line. Okay, so for month 1, year space. I'm going to concatenate it with a variable year. So it's going to say for month. It's going to use a particular. We're going to know the particular month and year. And again, whatever the user types is going to be stored as a. It's going to be returned as a string. So again, it's going to be stored here. But the thing is, we can't use the numbers in. Strings in calculations. So we need to convert it to a number. And the way we do that is just using the same. For inches of rainfall, I want to convert it to a double. I just want to convert it to a double. You can accept it as an integer, but for me, I just want to convert it as a double, so that, for example, if the inches were, let's say 24.5, the user can do that. So I'm going to use, instead of integer.parse int, it's going to be double.parse double. Okay, so I'm going to take what is in user input string and then convert it to a double, and I do that with double.parse double. And what I'm passing to a double is, in this case, going to be user input string. And once I pass the user input string to a double, I need a place to store it. Remember, we are asking for the inches of rainfall for that month, so I can go ahead and create another variable here and say, because it's the user is going to can type a double and we are passing it to a double, we need to create a double variable. So I'm going to create a double variable. I'm going to call it inches of rainfall. Inches of rainfall, and inches of rainfall is what is going to store what the user types, the inches of rainfall the user types for that month. Okay, so now we will have the inches of rainfall. That's what the question says. Each iteration of the inner loop should ask for inches of rainfall for that month. So after all the iterations, the program should display the number of months. Okay, this variable is what's keeping the number of months, keeping track of the number of months. Okay, this loop, every time this loop runs, that's for 1 month. If it goes back up and run again, that's for 2 months. So in this loop, how many times this loop runs is each time it runs it's 1 month. Each time it runs it's 1 month. So we can go ahead and create a variable here. Because it's the number of months, it's going to be an integer. It's just the number of months. So I'm going to create an integer. I'm going to call it int number of months. Actually, I'm going to call it total number of months. Total number of months. And we're going to store the total number of months here. And the way we do that, well, initially total number of months is 0. Initially, before we start asking the user for input for any month, we don't have any data. We don't have any data for any month. So the total number of months is going to be 0. We are keeping track of the number of months that we are collecting data for. We haven't collected it before we collect data. We haven't collected data for any month. So total number of months is 0. We want to keep track of the number of months. So it said after all the iterations, the program should display the number of months. Okay, so let's go ahead and each time this loop runs, that's 1 month. Even if it goes back up here and the year increases to 2, it's going to come back and run again. So each time it runs, that's 1 month. So let's keep track of all the months. So total number of months is going to be equal to total number of months plus 1. So each time this loop runs, total number of months is going to be equal to the result in total number of months itself plus 1. Initially, total number of months is 0. So if this loop runs the first time, total number of months is going to be equal to 0 plus 1, which is 1. And 1 is going to be stored in total number of months. If this loop runs again, that means we have 2 months. So in the way this total number of months stores 2 months is this. It already has 1. So it's going to be 1 plus 1, which is 2. And that 2 is going to be stored here. And so by the time all this nested loop is done, we'll have the total number of months. Okay, so now we are done with that. The program should display the number of months, the total inches of rainfall. Okay, so now for each month we are asking for the inches of rainfall. So after each month runs and we have the inches of rainfall, we should also add it up. We should also accumulate it. We should also start accumulating the inches of rainfall for each month. So if the user enters the inches of rainfall for month 1, let's let's add it to a variable, an accumulator. And then if the user enters another inches of rainfall for month 2, let's add it to what's already stored in the accumulator. So that's exactly, it's similar to this one. So let's go ahead and create another variable, which is going to be a double, because inches of rainfall is being received as a double. So let's go ahead and create another variable called double, and then call it total inches of rainfall. And initially, total inches of rainfall is 0, because before we start collecting data, we don't have any data. So total inches of rainfall is going to be 0. Sorry about that. Okay, so once we ask for the inches of rainfall and we get it for that month, let's go ahead and add that number to total inches of rainfall. So total inches of rainfall is going to be equal to what's already stored in total inches of rainfall plus inches of rainfall for that month. Okay, so each time the user enters inches of rainfall, it's being added to what's already stored in total inches of rainfall, and total of all of this, the result of all of this, is going to be stored in total inches of rainfall. So total inches of rainfall start off with 0. So the user enters, let's say, 50.5 inches. So total inches of rainfall is going to be 0 plus 20.5 inches, whatever they type here, and then 0 is going to be added to that, and then the total is going to be stored in total inches of rainfall, and it's going to keep on doing that, keep on accumulating. So by the time we are done, total inches of rainfall will have all the total, we'll have the total inches of rainfall. So basically, okay, so we have, after all iterations, the program should display the number of months, total inches of rainfall, and the average rainfall per month for the entire period. All right, so let's go ahead and create a variable that's going to hold the average rainfall. So I'm going to call that a double. Double average rainfall, and that's going to hold the average rainfall. So to calculate that, we don't have to put the average rainfall in the loop, because the average rainfall, I think the formula, based on what I know about this question, I think the formula is going to be the total inches of rainfall divided by the total number of months. That's what I think the formula is going to be based on the question. If you already know the number, you would have the variables. You can still get the numbers here. If you already know the formula for total average rainfall, you would have what you need. You'd have all the numbers, all the values you need, all the variables you need. Okay, or you can basically get all the numbers you need to solve or calculate for average rainfall. But this is what I think is the formula. It's inches of rainfall. Total inches of rainfall. Total inches of rainfall divided by total number of months. So we don't want to go ahead and calculate it in here, because this is a loop, and we don't have the total number of months, and we don't have the total inches of rainfall if this loop is still going. This loop is going to have the total number of months and total inches of rainfall after it's done, after both of them are done, because these two loops are working together. So when both of them are done, when this one is done and when this one is done, let's go ahead and calculate it right after both of them. So average rainfall is going to be equal to, like I said, total inches of rainfall divided by total number of months. Yeah, so now we have the average rainfall, and the average rainfall for the per month for the entire period. Okay, so now we're done. So anytime we use the J option pane, we need to call system.exit, which is going to terminate the extra thread that is caused by the J option pane. Okay, the extra thread that is started by the J option pane, and I'm passing in 0 so that in the future I can test on the return value to see if 0 was returned. Okay, and if 0 was returned, it's normally an indication that the program run successfully reached this line and return 0. It's an indication that the program ran successfully. Okay, so let's move on. It's over here. We can, before that, let's go ahead. It said we should display it. Okay, so we need to write a system.out.print statement to display it. Not the system.out.print statement. Since we are using the GOption pane, we can use the GOption pane's show message dialog, and I'll do that in a second. But what we are displaying over here is the program should display the number of months. So let's start with the number of months. So like I said, this is when you are done using the GOption pane. But because we want to display stuff, we have to do it before. Okay, we don't have, because over here is like we've terminated the thread. So let's go ahead and continue using the GOption pane before we close it. Okay, so I'm going to call GOption pane dot show message dialog. And show message dialog takes 2 arguments. For the simple use, it takes 2 arguments. Null is the first argument, and null is going to center the window on the screen. The second argument is what you want to display. Is what you want to display. So this is what I want to display. The first thing I want to display is the number of months. So I can say number of months is going to be equal to total number of months here. I'm going to copy it and paste it. Then I'm going to concatenate it with a new line character so that I can break to the new line. And the new line character is \n. Both of them together is a new line character. It's going to break the line to the next line. Okay, so now I can go ahead and continue displaying the next thing. The number of months, the total inches of rainfall. So I can go ahead and display the total inches of rainfall. And let me go ahead and concatenate, break this line to a new line. I'm just concatenating what I'm going to type next to this line. So I'm breaking it to a new line because it's going off the screen. Okay, so so total inches of rainfall is going to be concatenated to the total inches of rainfall variable. I'm going to copy it and paste it here. And then the next thing is the average rainfall per month. So it's number of months, total inches of rainfall, and the average rainfall per month for the entire period. So I'm going to concatenate it again with a new line character. And the last thing is going to be average rainfall. Average rainfall per month. You can say that. And I'm going to concatenate that with the average rainfall variable, which we have here. So I'm going to copy it and paste it. Okay, I need to close this. Okay, so all right, so by this time we have everything displayed in the show message dialog method. So now we can go ahead and call system.exit, which is 0. Before I finish everything, we have some input validation. Do not accept a number less than 1 for the number of years. This is what we are asking for number of years. Please enter the number of years. Okay, please enter the number of years. And this is what we're accepting input. So it says do not accept a number less than 1 for the number of years. So we've declared number of years here. So I'm going to create a while loop and say this. I'm going to say while user number of years is less than, let me see, less than 1 for now. Yeah, so while user number of years is less than 1, then keep asking the user to enter the number of years, and then take the input and then check it again. Okay, so while the user number of years is less than 1, keep asking the user until the user enters the right thing, which is then in that case when it tests, this user number of years wouldn't be less than 1, so this is not going to run. It's going to jump out of the loop and continue. But the thing is this: when the program starts, it's going to run this statement while user number of years is less than 1. User number of years is not initialized to a number, so this will give us an error and tell us, oh, we need to initialize the number of years. So at least I know the number I'm comparing with 1 to see if it's really less than 1. So in order for us to kick this statement, or make this statement run for the first time, we need to make sure user number of years is less than 1. So I'm going to initialize user number of years to be equal to 0, because 0 is less than 1. So the first time this program starts, it's going to say, is 0 less than 1? Of course it's less than 1, so it's going to ask this question: please enter number of years. And the user is going to type in something, and that something is going to be stored in user number of years. The loop is going to go back up here. If that number is really a positive number, it's going to jump out of the loop and continue. If that number is still a negative number, it's going to ask him again, or ask the user again, him or her again. It's going to allow the user to type in something. It's going to come back up here and check. But initially, it's important for us to set it less than 1, so that at least for the first time when this program runs, we can ask. Whatever the user types later on will replace the 0 that is stored in user number of years, and then the program continues from there. Okay, so let's move on to the next input validation, which is do not accept negative numbers for the monthly rainfall. Okay, so this is the variable that's keeping track of the monthly rainfall. This is what we're asking. Please enter the inches of rainfall for month 1, or 2 or 3, whatever value is stored in month and year. So this is what we're asking for, the inches of rainfall per month, and this is the variable that's keeping track of the inches of rainfall per month. So let me space this out so we know the two statements that I'm talking about. So first we're asking, and we are converting the input into a double and storing it here. So this is what's happening. We're asking and storing the value in inches of rainfall. So the program said, do not accept negative numbers for monthly rainfall. So again, I'm going to use this same idea, this same while loop. So I'm going to write a while loop on top of it. And I'm going to say that it said, do not accept negative numbers for inches of rainfall. So while inches of rainfall is less than 0, because anything less than 0 is negative, is a negative number. Oops. While the inches of rainfall is less than 0, then keep on asking and asking the user to type in the inches of rainfall. And allow the user to type it in again. Store it in inches of rainfall and go check again. So when this program starts for the first time, inches of rainfall, which is stored here, is nothing. So the program is going to say, I first of all don't even know what in inches of rainfall. So what number am I using to compare against 0 to see if it's less than 0? So you first have to initialize it to something. That's what the program is basically telling you. So inches of rainfall, I'm going to set it to a number that is less than 0, so that at least for the first time, this while loop, okay, this statement will run. It will ask the user to enter the number of enter the inches of rainfall for the month. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set inches of rainfall to -1. And so that means that inches of rainfall is going to be -1 for the first time. So that means that while this statement will work, because while -1 is less than 0, yes, -1 is less than 0, so it's going to ask the user. Whatever the user types, okay, is going to replace the variable inches of rainfall here. So if the user typed in, let's say, 2, +2, after it's stored it here, it's going to come back up and check again. Is inches of rainfall less than 0? In this case, it's 2 less than 0. Now, 2 is not less than 0, so that means the statement in here won't run. It will jump outside of the loop and continue down. So, but initially, we need to at least set it to a value less than 0, so that initially it can break into the while loop and work. Okay, now there's a problem. If the user types in, let's say, +2, it's going to come back up here and say, while 2 is less than 0, okay? So 2 is not less than 0, okay? So it's going to skip this while loop, do this, come back up here and on this line again, go down all the way and meet this while loop again. But the thing is, inches of rainfall is now 2. Inches of rainfall is now 2, and 2 is not less than 0. So instead of asking for the next month, asking for the inches of rainfall for the next month, it's going to skip over this while loop again. This while we want this question to be asked each time for each month, but because we entered 2 for the first month, 2 is still stored in the inches of rainfall variable. Okay, so when it comes up here and checks to see if 2 is less than 0, 2 is not less than 0. So this statement wouldn't ask again. It would basically wouldn't ask the user again. But we want to ask the user for the inches of rainfall for every month. Okay, so that means that we need to find a way. We need to make sure that this statement is true at least for the second time before the user types in the month. We need to make sure this question is asked before the user types in the month for, let's say, the second month or the third month. Each time this loop comes back around, we need to make sure that the user is asked this question, okay, and then the user types in something. We don't want to skip this while loop every time. So that means that once we accept the input, we store it in inches of rainfall. We do the calculation, okay. After we're done with the calculation, before it goes back up and ask again, let's reset inches of rainfall to -1 like we did here. We set it to -1 so that this while loop can run the first time. Now this inches of rainfall has been changed from -1 to the user's number. So if it's a positive number, it wouldn't run again, but we need this statement to run each time. So after the user has typed in inches of rainfall, we've used it in the calculation. Okay, it's important. After we've used it in the calculation, okay, we don't want to set it to -1 and then use it in the calculation. You want to first use it in the calculation, and then before you go back up and ask again, let's set inches of rainfall back to -1. So inches of rainfall is going to be called to -1. So in that case, after let's say the user has typed in a positive number of 2, let's say 2. Now it's going to come, it's going to check, is 2 less than 0? No, 2 is not less than 0. So it's going to come down and go ahead and do this calculation and then set inches of rainfall back to -1. So when this loop is met again, okay, it's encountered again, inches of rainfall is going to be less than 0 because -1 is less than 0. So it's going to ask again, please enter the inches of rainfall for the next month. The user is going to type in a positive number, a positive number. It's going to pass this, move down, calculate it, set it to -1 again. -1 is going to be less than 0, so it's going to come in the loop and ask again. The user is going to type in something, and what the user is going to type is going to replace the -1 that is stored in inches of rainfall, and then inches of rainfall now is going to be positive. Okay, if the user types in a positive number, so a positive number will pass this validation, and then continue on and on and on and on. Okay, so I hope you understand. Okay, so basically this two things we've done here has solved our input validation. All right, so let's go ahead and test the program to see if it works. Now we're done. I'm going to compile it and save it as average rainfall. I'm going to create a folder called average rainfall. And save average rainfall in there. What did I do? Okay, let me just do this. Okay. All right, so we have a couple of errors. So let's see what's wrong. Okay, so where is it? Okay, so it's on this line and it says it cannot, let's see what it's saying. Cannot find symbol. It can't find total inches of rainfall. Okay, so over here, total inches of rainfall, I initialized, or I declared it with a capital I. Okay, so each word was declared with a capital I. Each word was started with a capital I in this string. But over here on this line that this error is coming from, it says it doesn't know what this is because over here I spelled it with a small I. So I'm going to change it to a capital I and then compile it. And it fixed the error. So let's go ahead and run it and let's see what happens. Okay, so please enter the number of years. So I'm going to enter 1 year. Now I know there are 12 months in a year, so it should ask me 12 times, okay, to enter the input for each month, okay, and to enter the number of rainfall for each month. Then I should have the result after. Okay, so I'm going to enter 1 year, and it should ask me 12 times. So it's going to say, please enter the number of years. Let's see. I said 1. Okay, let me go ahead and cancel this. I think I saw something happen. Something weird happen. Let's see. It's less than 1. Okay. Let me try one last time. I think I saw something weird happen. Please enter the number of years. I'm going to enter 1. So it's asking me twice to enter the number of years. Let's see. Okay, so I think I know what is the problem. Let me go through this and see what's happening. I mean, 1 is not less than 1, so it shouldn't do that. Initially, user number of years is going to be 0. So while 0 is less than 1, store what I type in user number of years, and then check again. So it will be okay. I know what the problem is. Let me go ahead and cancel this. All right, so let me go ahead and cancel this. All right, so when I created a while loop, I should have deleted this, because what I did was I created a while loop and I copied this. Instead of deleting it, instead of cutting it, because this is exactly what we are asking. Okay, so instead of deleting this, I was supposed to like cut it like this and then paste it in here. I've already pasted it. What I did was I copied it, I pasted it here, and I forgot to delete this, because this is exactly the same thing. The only difference is that this time around it's being validated. It's going. These two statements are going to run on based on this condition. So it's asking twice. It's asking this one. We are getting the output in user number of years, and it's asking again over here, and it's changing the value that was stored over here to whatever the types here. So we don't need these 2 lines, because I've already pasted it here for the input validation. So let me go ahead and delete this. Let me see if I did the same thing for this one. No, I didn't do the same thing for this one. So we're fine, because I copied those 2 lines and I cut it, I think, and I put it in the while loop. So I don't have anything. The next thing is just the calculation. Okay, so we have the fix now. Let's compile it, because it was weird. It was weird that it was asking me twice. Let's run. The second time around, when it asked me if I so the first one was input validate. It would validate or check my inputs. The second time around, it wasn't going to, because the second time around it wasn't in a while loop. So there's no, it would have been pointless to even have done the first one, because the second one is what it's going to hold, and then the second one doesn't have any input validation. The second 2 lines. Okay, so now please enter the number of years. I'm going to enter 1. So like I said, I'm expecting 12. I'm expecting the program to ask me 12 times. So please enter the number of years 1, and now it's right there. Now we'll run 1 time. Now it says, please enter the inches of rainfall for month 1, year 1. See, the program knows that we are in month 1, year 1, based on how we set up the loop. Okay. So I'm going to enter 2 inches of rainfall for each month. Okay, so I'm expecting 24 inches of rainfall. So it's because 2 times 12 is 24. Okay, 2 inches of rainfall for each month. And for number of months, because it's only 1 year, I'm expecting 12 months to display as a number of months. And then the inches of rainfall is going to be calculated, based on those 2. So I'm going to enter 2 for month 1, and then see, now it says, please enter the inches of rainfall for month 2, year 1. So 2. For month 3, year 1. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then for month 10, year 1, 2. 11, year 1, 2. Month 12, year 1, 2. So number of months, it says 12. That's correct. Total inches of rainfall is 24.0 inches. I should have just added inches at the end. I'll do that. I'll fix that, and I'll do that. All right. And total inches of rainfall is 24 inches, because each month there were 2 inches, and average rainfall is basically the calculation that it went through. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK and try again, and I'm going to just make it look nice over here. So total inches of rainfall, total inches of rainfall. Before it breaks to a new line, I'm just going to end it with a space in inches, and then now it breaks to a new line and prints average rainfall. Okay, so compile it and then run. I'm going to try. Now I'm going to type in 2 years. 2 years. So 2 years, I'm expecting 24 months. 24 months in total, right? And I'm expecting it to ask me 24 times for the number of inches of rainfall for each month. So each month in year 1, each month in year 2. So 12 months in year 1 and 12 months in year 2. I'm expecting 24 months. Okay. If I put in 2 inches of rainfall for each month for all the 2 years, I'm expecting 48 inches. And then the average rainfall is going to be calculated. So let's try. Enter number of years. I'm going to enter 2 and hit OK. So now it says, please enter the inches of rainfall for month 1, year 1. So I'm going to enter 2 for all of them, for all of year 1. So now this is the inches of rainfall for month 12, year 1. When I hit enter, it's going to say, please enter the inches of rainfall for month 1, year 2. So now we've moved into year 2. So it's now getting input for year 2. So because of the while loop, because of the way we set up the while loop, it's accepting inputs for basically every month, and it's keeping track of how many months, because we are calculating that with this variable, which is total number of months here. It's keeping track of how many inches, as we are going, because we are storing it in total inches of rainfall as we go. Okay, so I'm going to enter 2 for all of year 2, month 10, year 2, month 11, year 2, month 12, year 2, and hit enter. So because we have 24 months, okay, 2 years, 12 and 12, 24 months, 48 inches, because there were 2 inches of rainfall each month throughout the 2 years, and average rainfall is 2.0. Basically, it just calculated that. Okay, so we're done. This program it runs well. It works. And if you have any questions, please comments down below. I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. All right, bye-bye.